as always in India, it's never a dull year. Always an exciting year.
This year, looking back, it's also been a really big year for us, Autocar India, right? We celebrated two major milestones. We celebrated our 300th issue of the magazine and 25 years.
Big thing about Tesla coming, Elon Musk coming to India. I think EV policy was changed, as we know, to allow him to come.
Brand Mahindra had a big year. I mean, there was not a single, let's say, instance, but I think they had a really big year this year.
I think 2025 is going to be the year where global brands struggle in India, to be honest. Hello and welcome to Deep Drive, our weekly podcast powered by Kotak Mahindra Prime. This is our last podcast for the year, and fittingly, we are going to be looking back at 2024. I'm Hormazd Sorabjee.
And I'm Sergius Barretto, and yes, we'll also be looking ahead at 2025 because it's the start also of a new year. So, Hormazd, yes, let's just start with looking back and let's just go chronologically, I suppose. Way back, India got its longest sea bridge, and I think we were the first to drive across that 22.1 kilometer long bridge.
Yeah, right? I think it's been a great infrastructure year in that sense, and specifically for the city of Mumbai, because the Atal Setu was really, it's in a way, it's hard to imagine that something like this could, actually be a reality even 5 years ago. Obviously, we are a year on. We are almost a year on. We are used to the bridge.
Right.
It still doesn't cease to fascinate how quickly you can get in and out of Mumbai and save so much time, especially if you're living in the south. And it was a truly remarkable infra project, which obviously we covered in great depth and we got exclusive access to.
Exactly.
But I think it wasn't just the Atal Setu, there was a coastal road as well.
Exactly.
Which in a way is more of a game changer. I think I'll tell you for me, because I use it every day to get to work. And even just those 3-4 minutes on it, it just makes your day. You just feel you're somewhere else. Sometimes you don't even think you're in India. You've got this fabulous road, the sea on one side, it just got this open feeling, this really airy. Sometimes there's a nice bright blue sky, though Mumbai is pretty smoggy these days. But you really feel that, you're in a different country. And it's a great road, but again, getting a little patchy, unfortunate again, that's the reality. But, can't complain. It's been absolutely fantastic. And even for something regular like going to the airport, it just cuts so much time.
For you, it's easy, yeah.
And more than that, I just think it cuts a lot of fuel and, it just makes, let's say, driving so much more productive and efficient.
Exactly. No, absolutely. In fact, we went to Goa last week, right, Andrea and me, and we used the Atal Setu despite staying in Mahim. So I could have technically gone out midway, but it proved to be faster. So, driving longer still proved to be faster. Coastal road, yes, I haven't used it too much. I don't necessarily use it. But, it's interesting. I was just thinking about it. Technically, Bombay went over the sea and under the sea at the same time in the same year.
Yeah, that's right. And then don't forget, you've got the, bits of the Delhi-Mumbai expressway also being done up. Yes. And that's also opening up new sections. Getting from Delhi to Jaipur now, again, a breeze. I think people find it much faster and quicker now to drive rather than take the flight. So really, I think the short distances, it's becoming much easier now to take the car, and real competition for the airlines in that sense.
Exactly. Absolutely. So that's been infrastructure. Let's get to industry. And I think the big news or the big kind of merger that happened this year was JSW and MG, right? MG, of course, facing the China wall, let's put it that way, with the Indian government putting certain sort of restrictions on their expansion, things like that. I think JSW has come for them, the tie-up with JSW at the right time. They're going to be expanding. We know, he said, in fact, I like the quote, where he wants to have a Maruti moment with EVs, right? So they're going down the electrified path.
Yeah, Sajjan Jindal said
that. Yes, exactly. So, would you say that's been the highlight of this year?
I think it's really been big news, clearly, because, it's a very, very significant development. JSW, obviously a very big Indian conglomerate, very successful, having the deep pockets. More than that, the vision and ambition to really get full on into cars. They really have that ambition. In fact, from what I hear, it's not just MG. They want to look at other brands as well, and probably have a car with the JSW badge. So I think it's clear that they've got that really strong intent, and I think one thing you can see which has come out of this, and the first product out of this so-called, I wouldn't say joint venture, but more that JSW has acquired a significant stake in MG Motor India and is going to be even more. So after the JSW, let's say, investment into MG Motor India, I think the first product that's come out of that is the MG is the Windsor.
The Windsor.
And Windsor's been super successful. It was our EV of the year, and rightfully so. And I think it's more than just the product, because the product they would have got as well. It was the ability to price it very competitively, because now, they have the resources.
The innovative BASS scheme.
That's right. I think that you have to actually hand to the MG team,
The MG team,
because they had
cleaned that up.
They had thought that up. So so I think it is very, very significant. And looking at the way the Windsor has become the best-selling EV in the country in the first 2 months of its production, and continues to hold that sway, it's maybe a sign and a taste of things to come. So clearly they will have their challenges. They're having their challenges on the ICE vehicles. The Hector, which was once had some really strong sales, that's struggling right now. They need to kind of invest more in that. In the poor fuel efficiency has caught up. That reputation has caught up with it. There's more competition right now, and clearly I think MG also, their strength is with EVs, where they are focusing. So I think a little bit of a struggle on the ICE side, but I think I think EVs, which we'll talk about next year, they've got some products in the pipeline. So I think they're on a good wicket right now.
On a good wicket, yeah, absolutely. And Hormazd, that's been, of course, the big tie-up. There are some which we expect, and let's keep that for the year ahead. But I think this year, looking back, it's also been a really big year for us, Autocar India, right? We celebrated 2 major milestones. I mean, I'm so happy to have been part of it at this, significant point in its history. You've been there from the start. We celebrated our 300th issue of the magazine and 25 years.
Right, yeah. So I think a big year for our brand, Autocar 300th issue and the 25th anniversary back to back. So 2 special issues. I think it's really a proud moment for us. We've talked about it in an earlier podcast, but I think for us, thinking 25 years on, when the whole media landscape has completely changed, it's not like it used to be just a magazine. But glad to say that we've also evolved and adapted, strong on all platforms. Clearly a lot more work to do. But I think at least as far as brand goes, trust, credibility, we know we are right on the top. And I think that's where we hope to continue to consolidate. And, I think next 25 years is going to be even more exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, Hormazd, for me also, looking back at the year, celebrating our 25 years, I think one of the highlights was the fact that, of course, we had mega stories as we always do, but setting a new Guinness World Record, the EV record that we did, the longest distance traveled on a single charge. I think that was really something special, because we did it in India with normal regular traffic and things like that, not on a sort of loop or an oval.
No, it was a genuine achievement and a genuine tough achievement. Not a record because, the conditions allow you, or, just by any, let's say, geographic advantage, you can set certain records or not. But I think this was a genuine record, and really hats off to Rahul. I think it's probably one of the biggest achievements we've done in the last 25 years.
So absolutely. And I think a special shout out also to Shahpur for once again sort of snagging the Air Force and celebrating with us with the Surya Kirans, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it was really hard pulling that off. But I think, again, we had to make our 25th anniversary special, and we did.
So absolutely. Hormazd, let's move on now to another big announcement that happened this year, and something that technically hasn't played out as yet, but everyone is looking forward to, given it's Ford. Ford announced that they intend to restart local manufacturing. At the beginning, of course, only for exports. But I think we all know how that could go. It could very easily translate into then local sales, given that they have the network in place already and they've continued with service and things like that. So is that for you also another significant moment in this year? Because for me, it looked like a very big step and a positive one, because we were looking at the Americans and Europeans really struggling in India. But hopefully this is a sign that, Ford could make a comeback and do it strong.
Yeah, as we said before, Ford never really wanted to leave India. They were forced to leave India because they left the product development in the hands of the Mahindra joint venture, which fell through. And after that fell through, all the products they were to launch also fell through, and their existing products were not BS6 compliant. So even if they wanted to, they couldn't sell them in the market. And they lost about 18 months lead time to develop that, or even 12 months lead time. So they were forced to exit. But clearly, they've kept their service going. I think Ford is got a pretty, let's say, a focused plan. They are going to, come to India in a way that will be export oriented, as they said, with their EVs. Makes a lot of sense. But, it doesn't make sense to be producing only for the export market and not for the domestic market when you already have somewhat of a dealer network.
So Hormazd, that's on the EVs, but we know initially they had wanted to start sort of a small production with the Endeavour. Now we hear it maybe not. What's the latest scoop you have on the Endeavour?
The Endeavour is definitely coming.
Okay.
Ford are very tight-lipped about it, and I think for different reasons. I think, to be honest, I don't think they want to officially communicate to the dealers. I think there are still some settlements which are happening, and this would kind of change the dynamics of that.
Right. Okay.
So they deliberately don't want to say their mum on it, absolutely zip on the Endeavour coming. They don't want to let on to the dealer network right now. But we do know it's coming, and it makes a lot of sense. Everyone's asking, will it be a CBU? Will it be a CKD? One thing's for sure, it will be a CKD. And what people don't realize is that the 2-liter diesel, or what they call the Panther engine, is being made in Sanand for exports.
Exactly.
So it's just so logical that they will use that engine, in the Indian version. It makes no sense of exporting that engine out and then bringing the Endeavour back as a CBU.
Whoa.
So they will do that in due course of time. I think they really need to sort out their whole strategy right now, which is, they got to get everything together. They can't do everything in isolation. They can't put an Endeavour line in isolation. They have to get their EV strategy sorted out. And within that, the Endeavour will fit. So it will take some time. I think we should see a locally produced Endeavour, by the end of 25 or early 26. But I think I'm quite confident it is definitely happening. And it's just that Ford is being a little mum about it, right?
Right. So that's definitely good news, I think, because a lot of Endeavour fans. I mean, we know the Fortuner is the king of that segment, but that's not to say the Endeavour wasn't doing well at all. It had its own following and gave the Fortuner a run for the money. I think right now it's got a free run.
Absolutely.
So right. So that's on Ford. What was another manufacturer making a big India announcement is Vinfast, right? The Vietnamese brand, the EV brand, EV Now, at least. What is your outlook for that brand? I mean, I've been reading so much about that brand, both positive and negative. We've seen the products have been panned globally, but they've been praised for being very innovative and kind of disruptive, to use that word, which I don't normally like. But yeah, what's your thought for Vinfast in India? Do you think, first of all, it'll come through?
Well, I think they made a big announcement, but I think, as you said, Vinfast doesn't have the highest level of credibility globally. But I think, obviously they have funding, or we think they have funding. And but I think it's not going to be easy to just, establish roots here, a network over here. Very, very challenging. So I still think the jury is out on how they will do. Now they have got a whole lineup of models, very, very reasonably priced. But again, there's serious competition in this space. And, we had Stellantis talking of bringing in Leap Motor. But that seems to have gone a bit quiet right now. So not easy bringing in these, different and new brands into the market. Because clearly it is getting a little crowded right now. And clearly what we are seeing is that the known brands are the ones that are really emerging to get stronger and stronger.
So while we're on EVs, Hormazd, there's another brand that has made multiple announcements, at least, coming to India, wanting to come to India. The government wants them to come here, but somehow the two have never met, and that's Tesla, right?
I know the big thing about Tesla coming, Elon Musk coming to India. I think EV policy was changed, as we know, to allow him to come. reduction in customs duties on CBUs if you invest $500 million over here.
Subsequently.
Exactly. So I think really, I think, everyone or the government bent over backwards to kind of attract them, and they haven't come. I think they will come at some point. Maybe it's a little too premature because in the end, you need the product. And I think right now, they might come in CBU form. Again, there's talk of them setting up a showroom first in Delhi. But again, you never know whether they are coming until they actually do. I mean, Elon Musk, he's got his hands full right now.
Yeah, and now in the politics.
Administration. Exactly. So I think, Tesla is the poster boy of the EV world. Every state wants to have Tesla come and set up shop there and set up a huge manufacturing plant. And for Tesla, if they do come, it will be for a global model. So they had that small one called under Project Redwood. But clearly, we don't know where that is right now. He's got his own problems as well. Tesla has. And I think in that sense, I would imagine India is lower down in the priority of things for him.
Right. Speaking of India and Indian priority, Hyundai just upped the priority, I would think, by sort of listing on the stock exchange. I mean, for a long time, we know that they've done a lot for India. They're kind of Indian almost in a sense, given that they produce cars here, high local content, things like that. But they were never viewed as an Indian company in the same way as Maruti Suzuki or Suzuki.
Yeah, that's right.
Brand. As an Indian brand. Do you think this could change that perception in consumers' mind, or is it just too far from a everyday consumer to be listed on?
I think it would, but I think it really depends on finally the products that they're looking at. I think, Maruti Suzuki, it's by virtue of their legacy, their history, they are in every corner of India. A lot of people's first car was a Maruti because they address that lower end of the market, which Hyundai has actually moved away from. They've gone more premium. So in that sense, to go beyond their 15-16% market share, they really need to be bringing in more mass models, or the market has to really move up. The volume base has to move up to those segments for them to really grow. But I think what we're going to see is a lot more R&D locally in India. They'll be faster to market. They will be, I think, in time setting up a massive R&D base over here. The one we've seen Maruti has done in Rohtak, which I believe has really paid dividends. In fact, the Toyota MD, praised that, saying that Maruti Suzuki can be closer to the market than even Toyota can, purely because of that one facility. So they can do development much faster, and validation much faster, and even at a cheaper cost, because it's all done locally over here. And I think that really is going to be the way forward for Hyundai, is to kind of deepen its development roots in India more and more. Because right now, though they are manufacturing at a high scale and with a very high level of local content, a lot of the R&D is not done here. It's still done in Korea, back in Namyang, the R&D center. So I think once they start shifting that here, so let's say, not just made in India, it's been conceived and developed in India. That's when you become truly Indian. And frankly, even Maruti Suzuki entirely doesn't do that. I mean, a lot of the cars aren't really designed and developed entirely.
Platform development still doesn't happen here.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. It's a global skill. So I think, but slowly, I think they will be moving that more and more to India, because India is becoming a core market globally for all these brands. And, we've seen the geopolitics also shifting. China is not a market people want to invest in that much. They're looking at more opportunities within India. And I think one of the ways of getting the costs down, and one of the ways of really getting, let's say, being relevant in India, is making products which really resonate with the Indian buyer, which a lot of manufacturers just don't do.
Exactly, absolutely. In fact, I think Hyundai can only get stronger from here. As you rightly said, they don't have a R&D. They have a small little design center, but it's really almost like a tick mark exercise. Everything happens in Korea.
Yeah, they do small things like, colors and trim and stuff like that, but that hard engineering, the absolutely core engineering is not done here at all.
So, exactly. And, Hormazd, there's another brand we should talk about while we're talking about sort of India investments. JLR, they want to now make, they make cars in India, for assembled cars for the local market, but to produce cars fully here for exports, right? Is that you see going to change things for the brand, because it has struggled to find a foothold in the luxury space here in India? Do you think that will?
Well, I think actually, if you ask me, the brand that has made the biggest impact in the luxury space this year is JLR. We see the sheer growth with the logo.
Assembled Range Rover and Land Rovers.
Yeah, that's right. So with that, the two Range Rovers made a huge difference. It's got a brand with a lot of pull. I think they are nibbling away at Audi, might even overtake Audi. So they're that way up. They've really had a big jump, and it's purely down to the CKD models which they've done, which there's a massive, massive demand on. So they've done well there, but again, very, very niche. I think, under Tata ownership, let's say under Mr. Chandrasekharan's leadership, who really is keen to kind of develop more synergies between JLR and Tata Motors. I think we are looking at this one common platform which is going to be used for both brands. And I think that global base is going to be in Chennai. So, I think it's very exciting, because clearly to be a global hub is really a big deal. And I think, then the world is your playground, because then the model goes from here to everywhere. And a brand like Jaguar is a global brand, though the rebranding is
another podcast which we've done.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I think that also was a big announcement in 2024. So I think 2024 has seen a lot of big announcements happening, but they'll be playing out a lot
later. Absolutely. Yeah, no, since we're talking JLR, Tata Motors, the owners, we had rather unfortunate and sad news this year, right? I mean, Ratan Tata passing away. And
absolutely. I think, we saw how the country reacted to that, how the world reacted to that. I mean, he was a colossus, a towering figure, who's, just irreplaceable, totally a unique person. I mean, it's just, hard to kind of express completely in words. But I think his contribution to the Indian auto industry, not just to the Indian auto industry, but to Indian industry and India. If you see what the Tata Group has achieved under his leadership, it's just absolutely just phenomenal. So I think that was really a big, big loss. And clearly, but, he's left behind a strong legacy. And I think, he was operationally out of the company a while ago, but, he was still very much a guiding force, very much a presence. And, but I think he's put in place a structure that's going to allow the company to go from strength to strength, or the group to go from strength to strength.
Absolutely. In fact, Hormazd, at the JLR rebrand, there were so many people talking about Ratan Tata. In the UK, I mean, the Austria Corpcom head came up to me and said, how was it in India? Because we were so sad when Ratan Tata passed away. And I was really touched to see that, somebody in Austria, of course, he works for JLR, yes, but still, he said, yes, it was a very sad time for us in the company too. He said, we just felt a loss.
Yeah, I think, it's fair to say he was probably the most loved industrialist, or
easily
by far, and just by his sheer compassion and personality, and how he was with people who were not as powerful as him. I think that's really what defined it. He really cared for the common man. I mean, everything he did, from the Nano, if you see the motive behind the Nano, what it was for, to give safe mobility to people who couldn't afford anything, afford a four-wheeler. So I think that's really what made him so special. And that's why he was so revered and loved by everyone.
True. And I a lot of people probably are hoping that he from up above would be guiding the Jaguar rebirths. Yeah, because, that's something we have to discuss this year too, which was a rebirth of Jaguar. But it kind of, at least for now, has bombed, and we're going to have to wait to see the product, right? I think.
Yeah, that's right. So I think really it's
risky move.
Very, very controversial. I think very risky move. And for me, a bigger concern is that, to have a premium brand, talking about above £100,000 a car, pure electric, what is the market for that? Is there really a big market for those vehicles? Eventually, yes, everything will be electric, so you won't have a choice. But I think that transition phase is going to be long. And, I think, so yeah, it's going to be quite interesting. I think the car's coming out next year, maybe not in India, but globally it is. So we'll have to wait and watch.
Absolutely.
And just after we recorded the podcast, we got the really sad news of the passing of Osamu Suzuki, who lived till the incredible age of 94. Now, Suzuki just seemed completely indestructible. He had that endless energy, and I think his mantra for longevity was work, work, and more work with lots of green tea in between. We just cannot, overstate the impact of Osamu Suzuki on India, because he not only transformed the automotive industry, put a whole subcontinent on wheels, he actually even changed the culture of India. And I think for him, the most defining moment in his life was the gamble he took on India, where he got into a country where there was no auto market, but he believed that this was the future. And as they say, the rest is history. I think the other enduring bit about Suzuki-san's legacy is his absolute focus on cost control. No car manufacturer can make a car as cheaply as Suzuki can. And that really has been the recipe for its success and the reason why global automakers have just not been able to crack this market the way Suzuki has. And Suzuki was quite a fighter as well, be it scraps with Volkswagen, fallouts with General Motors, or even the Indian government itself. Suzuki always got the better of them. So really, the passing of Osamu Suzuki marks the end of a chapter. What this spells for Suzuki going forward, one can sort of predict. Suzuki's alliance with Toyota is only going to get stronger, and eventually it could be that Suzuki comes under Toyota's umbrella.
Hormazd, the other big sort of milestone this year was the Wagon R. 25 years it completed, and that's actually quite interesting because not many cars get to complete 25 years, right? Many brands
And at the top.
And at the top, exactly. Still growing strong.
Yeah, I mean, well, it has dropped a few spaces, but I think Wagon R has been absolutely one of those models of Maruti which has, or let's say, one of the strong pillars of Maruti. And I think it's very interesting that, in this age when people kind of, want cars that look cooler, have a better design, something as boxy as the Wagon R still has so many takers, which just goes to show that, at the end, certain people want that practicality, that functionality. They don't really care about form that much. And Wagon R is a classic example of that. In fact, I think we've seen the Kia Ceros, which follows that same template, that same ethos. Well, it's not the Wagon R, it's more the Kia Soul, which the company had. And the Soul they were thinking of bringing here and evaluating, but it proved to be too expensive. So, but I think, again, people now want that flexibility and practicality. And I think the Wagon R does offer that. Of course, CNG is a huge chunk of the sales right now. So clearly, again, it's got the boot space to lend itself to having a CNG tank without really compromising on practicality. And at the end of the day, it's a very reliable product. You sit high. It gives you the confidence. It's nimble. And, you drive a Wagon R and you'll feel that, why do I need anything else? Because it can really serve as a decent family car with space for your family and your luggage.
Exactly. And I think, Maruti, you were very smart in keeping the faith with this formula, persisting at it 4 generations. Hyundai, we know the tall boy Santro, they gave up on it. Even they tried to rebirth the brand, but that didn't work out.
I think that's very interesting because when the Santro came back, I don't think it was true to the tall boy designs. They played too much on style, though. They gave form too much of a priority over function. And that doesn't work.
True.
You've got to, have the guts. You've got to be true to your conviction and saying, yes, to get practicality, you do have to sacrifice design. And that's actually what's even the Kia MD told us, that he thinks that while the styling might be a bit, some might find it controversial, the interior space, and we've seen the car, is fantastic. Not driven it yet, but clearly phenomenal interiors. with seats that recline, slide, ventilated rear seats, all that, to give such importance to rear seat in such a small package, sub 4 meter package, is what it's all about. And that's really something which the Wagon R did 25 years ago when there was no real sub 4 meter rule yet.
Exactly.
But that's what it's all about because, to maximize space in a tight footprint, you have to go tall. And that's really a formula that's worked phenomenally well. And the Wagon R has done it. And, one also has to say that the Wagon R doesn't really have any competition. After the Santro went up.
Yeah.
So it's ruling that space on its own. And while a lot of people, are moving to SUVs, and they are, but there's a huge kind of base which still wants vehicles like that. And there's only one to choose from.
Exactly. Absolutely. And Hormaz, while we're on Maruti, there's another sort of achievement I want to talk about, because while it might be just one that many other brands sort of do often enough, for Maruti, achieving a 5-star global NCAP, I think was it was big news in the year because, I've always said it's not a matter of skill, it's a matter of will. It's everyone has the engineering expertise.
It's not a matter of will, it's a matter of cost.
Yeah, exactly. Not a matter of cost.
You spend and you can do it.
Exactly. And I think Maruti finally, though, this year decided that, okay, enough of people are talking about safety, right?
Very smart. I think I always call these as marketing moves because clearly then it shuts everyone up about calling it a tin can and things like that. And it's come at the right time where, Tata Motors is struggling a little bit with, demand issues, a little bit quality issues. And they were beating the 5-star drum all the time. Now that's no longer
a USP
or a competitive advantage. So I think Maruti's done it at the right time and, very sensibly so.
True, absolutely. And while we're on about, the, let's say, local, I'm calling Maruti local, of course, brands. Another brand, Mahindra, had a big year. I mean, there was not a single, let's say, instance, but I think they had a really big year this year, right?
So I think for 2024, it is the newsmaker, the manufacturer of the year, got our award for that, and rightfully so. 2 smash hit products, 3XO, Rocks, and of course, I think what really turned everyone on their head was the 2 EVs. So I think that's shocked the entire auto industry. And talking to them, it's not just direct competition like Tata Motors, but even the global OEMs who've been really impressed with what they've done. So much tech, car that drives so well at a fantastic price. So I think 2025 is going to be already, we can say quite confidently, that is going to be a big product to watch out for, both those products.
Absolutely. And I think, Hormazd, in fact, this is as good a point as any to maybe move to the forward than 2025, the year ahead. It's going to be the year, let's say, for the Indian manufacturer. I certainly think with, Mahindra, as we just spoke about them, Tata going steady, Maruti, let's call them local, but there are some foreign brands that I think are going to struggle. Like, in fact, almost all of them, Stellantis, the Jeep and Citroen. We've got Renault and Nissan, who will have to wait till 2026 for the Duster. We've got Volkswagen and Skoda, who have a big product pipeline for next year, but it's all CBUs and really nothing local. So what's your take on these brands? Is it safe to say, I mean, that it's going to be tough times for them?
I think 2025 is going to be the year where global brands struggle in India, to be honest, for let's say, reasons which are linked globally, some are locally. I think for most of them globally, I mean, Volkswagen, they've got huge issues back home and in Europe. And when that happens, cash becomes very scarce or very precious, and they only deploy it in areas where they see a return.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, India is not an area where you see immediate return. You only make more losses. So then, people are very skeptical to kind of put money in because you're not getting that return. Having said that, I think Volkswagen has a plan with or without Mahindra, right? Which they've been talking to. So I think out of the lot, Volkswagen, Skoda is the strongest. You've got the Kailash, which is coming in, which is going to be a big bet for Skoda. We'll have to see how it pans out. I mean, it's the base variant, very well priced, going up a little bit pricier. So really see how the market reacts to that. I think they've got some good booking numbers. So that's quite encouraging. So they should get some good volume on that. Volkswagen as a brand, as you said, only CBUs coming. They're looking at bringing the Golf GTI. But again, a Halo model will sell only in the hundreds at best. They've got the Tyron coming in as well. So I think you've got a whole bunch of cars coming up, but as CBUs. The other, let's say, multinational big group is Renault Nissan. Right. Again, in turmoil in terms of product. You've got people leaving the company. Renault, I think they've got a Kaigo facelift
And a Tribe facelift.
And a Tribe, yeah, which is going to be quite substantial, but that's really not going to move the needle much. And again, now with the demergers from Nissan in a way, and Nissan now talking to Honda and Mitsubishi, that's all happening. So, there's a lot happening at a global level, and it's going to then just be wait and watch in India, because it'll be some time before we see any impact, positive or negative, in India. So things are likely to be in limbo for these companies for a while.
Because,
and Nissan is the one I'm really worried about, because clearly they don't have any new model this year. They've got the Magnite, good job on the facelift. X-Trail was a disaster, as we know. They've got absolutely nothing here. You've got a demotivated dealer network. There's talk of bringing in a petrol when it comes with an RHT, but again, that's the Patrol.
The Nissan Patrol.
Yeah, the Nissan Patrol. But that's going to be at 26 at that very small number. So really nothing big from Nissan. And then, with this Honda news, and even Mitsubishi wants to join.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot to sort out at a global level before we see any impact over here.
Right.
So I think things are going to be in limbo. I don't think they're just going to pull out. But I think, there's not going to be some huge investment. And I think all these companies, whether it's Volkswagen, Skoda, or Skoda VW as they're known, or Nissan, Renault, they are all looking for an Indian partner or some partner to partner with. Maybe not Indian. I believe even Nissan is desperately looking for some partner over here. Renault also looking. You might get some Chinese brands. There's talk of Geely and Renault having some discussions for the Indian market. Stellantis, again, such a great strategy, but now Tavares has gone, and we have to see, or he's not gone, but he's going. He's not going to have his contract renewed. That's there. And clearly, who comes in his place? Will they have the same kind of view on India? All said and done, Tavares believed in India. The only thing which he got wrong was he just didn't understand what the Indian consumer wanted. And by the time he started realizing, by giving letting those features come into the cars that they should have had in the first place, he's gone. So tough time for Stellantis as well. I mean, Jeep as a brand, again, struggling. They've got a compact, SUV coming, but that's still some time away. So quite interesting. I think in this scenario, the local players are only going to get stronger. And 2025 also is the year of EVs, which we've talked about. And interestingly, all these multinationals we've talked about, they don't have an EV plan for 2025. Maybe Volkswagen will do the ID4, small numbers, but
again, import,
Yeah. And Stellantis, they have some, but we don't know whether they're going to electrify, the C3 Aircross version or even
the Basalt. Yeah.
No plan for that right now. And again, Nissan, absolutely nothing. And so I think it's going to be a tough time so 2025 is going to be the tough year for the multinational.
Absolutely, Hormazd. In fact, and unfortunately, like you said, a lot of global things happening, alliances and things like that. So even if there were plans, manufacturers are just going to put everything on hold and wait and watch, because you just don't know how things are going to play out. So I think this is going to be a tough year ahead. But you mentioned tie-ups, and there is something that I want to talk about. Do you think it's possible that we'll see more Chinese brands enter India this year through tie-ups, looking at the JSW sort of route, that this is a easy entry into India now?
I think it would be. I think from what I understand, there's a slight thaw in relations between India and China. We've seen that. We've read about it as well. That could ease entry for certain Chinese players, but I don't think it's going to be a free entry the way MG got into India as 100% in the first place. They're the only ones to have done that. I think you might see some tie-ups. As I said, Geely is looking actively. I know they've had discussions with JSW. There's talk of them talking to Renault. There's, of course, BYD.
Do you think they'll find a partner?
They could find a partner. We all have to wait and watch. I mean, there's talk of them partnering with so many people. There was some rumor about Adani's at one time. Anil Ambani had
I think exactly plans was in there.
talking to a lot of people. So it could be that. I think what's clear is that this will be the way for them to enter. They can't come in on their own. They'll have to come in with some local partner.
Right.
And may not be, and definitely not as a majority shareholder.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's pretty clear. But I think they're going to look at these tie-ups because Great Wall were almost over the wall entering India, and then it all fell apart. So yeah, I think this could be the year we see a few more Chinese sort of partnerships as well. So Hormazd, last year in 23 we had regulations impacting the Indian auto market, the stricter Bharat 6.2 emission norms. This year we've not had anything. Next year, there doesn't seem to be, or do you see something impacting us?
There isn't anything there, but I think some regulations for the future will get defined. Like, CAFE 3 still not defined. That's going to be defined.
Up in the air.
I think BS7, are we doing it, not doing it, what's happening, that's going to be defined. But I think something not regulation related, but I think policy related, and we're going to be moving to E20 fuel, right? Clearly, that is going to happen. From what I understand, the feedstock is there to make it, so the refineries, the oil companies are ready. So I think there is, going to be a surplus of sugar as well, to create to make the ethanol now. So the sugar industry is ready. So I think we will see E20 coming into full effect from next year. And I think right now also, though there is no set specification, whether we're E10 or what, but what we understand on a nationwide basis, we are still around E16, E17 wide, on an average, right? Some states it's more, some states it's less. So moving to E20 is not so difficult. So I think we will move to E20. That's going to be a big one for all of us. It still won't affect, our cars, the engines, so to speak. That's about the limit. But clearly, that's the direction going. And I think that is the first step towards going towards flex fuel. And I think even in small amounts, you would have E85, E100 also coming because there are a few flex fuel products being developed, especially on the commercial vehicle side, three-wheelers and all that, which we'll see in the market. And you'll see these, I think you'll see the first of the, let's say, pure ethanol fuel stations coming up.
Absolutely. And it makes sense because you're not going to have to invest in a massive infrastructure to distribute, E85 fuel all over the country, right? With commercial vehicles, you can do it at specific routes, at specific points. I think, you're right. Probably the only policy shift that will happen next year. Apart from that, Hormazd, before we leave, anything else, any predictions you have for next year?
Well, I think it's going to be not a great year for growth. I think what we'll see is maybe single-digit growth, but I think it's not going to be homogeneous. I think we're going to see the upper end growing faster, maybe negative growth at the low end. I think what is very clear is that there's a premiumization happening of the market, Indian auto market. So I think with affordability, that is bound to happen. SUVs will continue to rule the roost. And but again, it's as always in India, it's never a dull year, always an exciting year. So I think with that, let's end this year end up. So thanks for watching. Hope to see you in the new year for our next podcast. Wish you all a happy and safe new year. Thanks for watching.